As you heard in my introduction, I teach and work with leaders as a primary vocation. So I'm an executive coach, I'm a consultant, and I teach and train, mostly supervisors. Today I'm going to approach a topic that hopefully I know all of you have a different take on this. Some of you are solopreneurs and you don't have employees. But I think in some ways you need to think about generations because you're marketing to all generations potentially. So we still need to understand them, right? Others of you actually hire and need to motivate and manage these different generations. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I have the same challenge. While I'm not a leader anymore, I am one who teaches these groups. And sometimes I'll have a room of 50 people or 40 people, and they'll be from 22 to 68. And what people in their 50s and 60s will tolerate as a trainer, nobody at 23 will tolerate, right? I'll have them, I mean, after 10 minutes, they'll be looking at their Blackberries or doing something. I've lost them, right? So part of my job, just like part of your job, is to stay what I call relevant. Meaning I need to understand these generations and be able to manage my business to support them and interface with them. Today's reality, we've got multiple work ethics. This is the big one, right? I hear from everybody. This new group of workers we have doesn't have any work ethic. Now, part of me is going to help you today realize that this is true. There's some truth to that, right? But part of me also remembers when I entered workforces and my parents entered workforces, didn't their parents say the same thing about them? I mean, really, if you talk to an aging relative, grandparent, uncle, whatever, and you hear the classic story of how they walked uphill to work 3 miles both ways, you know, every day. All right, so everyone thinks the generation behind them wasn't quite as stellar as they were. However, this word is very important, this work ethic word, because actually in some recent surveys of different generational people, Generation Y, which you'll know more if you don't know that term in a minute, is the first generation that didn't make a claim to their work ethic. In other words, when you ask people from previous generations, they were proud. They made a statement about, we were hardworking, we did this, we contributed. This is the first generation that's come along that didn't even mention that. This is the generation I'm talking about. What do you think? Yes. I found that cartoon, I was like, I don't know who did that, but they couldn't have done it any better, right? Because this is my pet peeve, right? This is the one where I just want to go behind them and yank them up, you know? It's hard when people are different from us, no different than diversity. When it came on the scene 10, 12, 15 years ago, that we had trouble getting used to people of different ethnic backgrounds. I mean, even we don't have too many men. We have one gentleman in the room, besides my photographer back here, that, you know, even when women came into the workforce, it was different, right? And men had to get used to it. It's no different in that respect. However, with understanding and to get to acceptance, you need to learn about each other. So I'll tell a personal story, because judging is much easier. Here's me. Here's me a couple years ago. Out in California, San Francisco, doing a workshop for a very large financial institution, working with a group of MBA students, very bright, newly hired, wanted me to do a program with them. So I was pretty pumped up. I don't get to work as much with that demographic as I would like to, so I'm ready. Because now I have my MBA, so I feel like I have credibility with the group, right? And I go in, of course we all know what icebreakers are. So I start with an icebreaker, one of my actually kind of interesting ones that I started using, and I said, okay everyone, what I'd like you to do is write down the answer to this question. Think back to your first job that you ever had, probably in high school, maybe even before you get to high school, and I'd like to have you write down what you learned in that job that you still carry with you today. Right? And I stop, and they're all kind of looking at me funny. And I'm thinking, well, I must have said that wrong. Maybe I left something out. I mean, it seemed pretty straightforward. So I said, okay, you're not doing much here. What's going on? And a brave soul somewhere in the room raised her hand, and she said, well, this was my first job. So 25, 26 years old, charged up, bright person. So this is back to the understanding plea that I'm making of you today, because here's me. I'm up here telling you how to do this, but I'll admit that part of me is going, you spoiled little brat, okay? I have been working since I am 13 years old. I didn't get this Ph.D. easy up here, right? And you didn't have a job. So then after she said that, I see all these heads nodding, in the room like, yeah, that's me too. And I'm thinking, wow. So luckily, I had that little switch in the back. Okay, put the judgment down for a minute and just be curious. So I asked a little more to the group. I said, wow, I'm having trouble with that, just for me and sort of my background. Tell me more. What's behind that? And almost 2-1, they said, well, what do you think they said? What do you think the reason why they didn't have a job?
They went to camp.
They went to camp. Too much going on. Volunteered. Some cases, all the values of that generation, actually. Parents wouldn't let them. It's all your fault. Their parents wouldn't let them because too much was going on, and they were going to camp. And they were doing things, their parents wanted them involved in activities so they could get in better schools because competition is stronger, and they wanted them to get a good education. These are a couple fun things that I know you can all relate to. Younger workers change jobs every 2-3 years, right? That's kind of an average. And even you've heard some of these other statistics, but here's an easy one to remember too, is they will change careers 3, maybe 4 times. Careers in their lifetime. Dentist to something else, right? Or whatever. I mean, not small changes. A couple others. Overtime is a nuisance. I have a personal life, right? I don't want to work overtime. My baby boomer veteran folks in companies I work with cannot get this, right? Overtime, we're overtime hungry. These folks turn it down. They just can't get that concept, right? Flip-flops are now business casual, right? I don't make this up. This is true. Customer service is a rare commodity, both in what you get out there, but also the skill set. So this is back to my earlier story. Where did you learn your customer service skills? Farm market when I was a kid, right? Ponderosa, I was a cashier. All of these, I learned those skills. If my first job isn't till age 26, when am I going to learn those skills? When am I going to learn to be on time? How to dress? How to address my boss? How to treat coworkers? Right? All that stuff. I mean, I know it sounds so common sense. We should all just know it. But I would suggest you actually just didn't know it either. You just got some early experiences that provided that for you. So shame on all of us for allowing that, but maybe that's the new world we live in, and that first job is going to have to teach them some of those skills. End on this thought. There are 5 things, no matter how different we are, that all of us have in common. So although the generations, we focus a lot on what's different, we actually have some of the same value systems. They just show up a little differently in different situations. First of all, it's just respect, right? And you wanted it when you came into the workforce. This generation wants it, right? It's hard to give it to them sometimes because you think they should earn it, but that's important. And so you have to ask about their world. You got to be a little interested in what they do, even though it's not. I remember when I first started working for this small startup company, and they wanted me to go play paintball with them, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Yeah, I'm not really sure I would have done that on my own, but it sounds fun. Let's try it. So you've got to be interested. Need for credible leadership. We all need leaders, right? This is the generation that grew up when ethical management in companies fell apart. CEO, you see all of it in the newspaper the last 15 years on people stole money from people. That's what they grew up seeing. They're very skeptical about leaders. Resistance to change. Even this generation has resistance, right? So it's not just older folks. We all like kind of to keep things the same and status quo, right? That's still common amongst all groups. Loyalty. Here's the big one. People say this group doesn't have any loyalty. They have loyalty to not the company anymore, granted. They do have loyalty to other people, and they have loyalty to a person or a boss. So they might not think they're going to work for Sheraton Hotel forever, but if they have a really good boss here, they will follow them somewhere else. right? So you can still win their loyalty. It just takes a little different. And last, I covered the learning and grow. We all wanted that, right? So it's no different. It's just speeded up a little bit in this generation. So thank you, guys. Yeah.